One more thing before you go into this that deal with gravity, and this is just something that I was thinking about as to what gravity actually is. And I've made the assertion before, as have many engineers and physicists and whatnot, that gravity is a product of electromagnetic energy. I believe this unequivocally. There are many scientists and engineers that absolutely agree with this 100%. Many more that believe that the universe is indeed an electrical entity and gravity has nothing, no role whatsoever to play in it. But the very thing that we are perceiving as gravity is actually an electromagnetic effect. And I'm going to try and give a little bit of an explanation as to how that works. So I'm going to read what I wrote down here, and then I'm going to try and explain it a little bit more in depth. So here's what I wrote. Charged particles in a magnetic field react at 90 degrees from the dielectric inertial plane, much the same as a gyroscope reacts at 90 degrees from its rotational plane. Since everything in existence is made from charged particles, then everything in existence will be affected by this 90-degree magnetogyroscopic field we mistakenly call gravity. It is also the field that literally determines up from down. Gravity, coincidentally, just happens to obey the very same inverse square law as all electromagnetic waves do and must obey, proving beyond any doubt that so-called gravity is nothing more than a well-known electromagnetic wave effect. Electricity is the only force in the universe. Okay, so I'm going to go beyond that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about spin. Okay. Now, spin appears to negate gravity, and we know that by taking a gyroscope, and when you spin it up, it's funny, but you've seen the videos where people can take a spinning object that's really heavy, and they can lift it up literally with one finger, because the anti-gravitic field or effects of a gyro actually do tend to negate gravity, okay, or what we're perceiving as gravity, but it's not really negating gravity. So when you spin an object, its magnetic field generated via its atomic charge becomes a closer relative motion and more resonance to either the centripetal or the centrifugal lines of force from the plane itself, which then negates or attenuates the downward magnetogyroscopic pressure we are misinterpreting as gravity. Now, what that means is this. It means simply that when you spin an object, the faster you spin it, the more it tends to negate the forces of gravity. Okay? There is an example, and actually let me bring this up. There's a guy named Bruce De Palma, okay? And Bruce De Palma did this amazing experiment called the spinning ball experiment. And essentially what it was, and I'll just kind of give you a little overview of it, is that when you spin a ball, and I think in this particular experiment, he took a ball and he spun it up to, I don't know, 20,000 RPM or something like that. 20 or 30, or 27,000 RPM, I'm sorry. Here it is right here in the chart. And then he launched it up in the air with a calibrated mechanism that, you know, would apply the same force vertically every single time. So he did it, he launched a ball that wasn't spinning, okay, and that ball took a curved parabolic path, okay, and then fell back down. Then he took the very same ball and he spun it up to 27,000 RPM, and what he noticed is that the ball took a higher trajectory, it went up faster, went higher, and came down slower, all because it was spinning, okay? Now that alone annihilates Newtonian physics, Newtonian laws of gravity, the De Palma spinning ball experiment, but it really shouldn't be any surprise considering the evidence that we've seen from gyroscopes, and gyroscopes having this ability to negate gravity. So what I'm saying is that this gravitic field that we're perceiving, that's actually an electromagnetic field, is the dielectric inertial plane of the magnetic field that is here on the Earth. And when I say that, if you picture the Earth as a disk, okay, the dielectric inertial plane or the magnetic field is spinning along the surface of the flat Earth, okay? which means that it will have a torsional effect of 90 degrees to that. Just like when you take a gyroscope and you poke it like on the top, what will happen is it will react 90 degrees away from that area that you poked it at, because that's where the force is transferred. It's actually transferred 90 degrees away from the point of the gyroscope that you're actually touching. Okay, the same thing happens with the centripetal, the dielectric inertial plane of the magnetic flat Earth. Okay, it is spinning, and it has this 90-degree force that's pushing down, that is literally determining up from down. It's what gives us that up from down. And I've always gone along with, I agree with the argument that gravity is really more density and buoyancy. However, I've always argued that there's still something that is determining up from down. And of course, the ballers would say, well, that's gravity, that's gravity. I'm saying that's simply the 90 degrees force that is adjacent to the dielectric inertial plane of the spinning magnetic field on flat Earth. Okay, I may be right, I may be wrong. I wanted to throw that out there, but there is no doubt in my mind that what we're perceiving as gravity is without a doubt an electromagnetic force.
This is an experiment with a spinning wheel, a rather large wheel, 13 inches diameter, mounted in a ball bearing on a shaft 3 feet long. I am going to hold it like this and swing it in a circle and lift it with one hand, but only when it's spinning. First of all, let me weigh it to show you just how heavy it is. As I talk, you'll see that lifting it is quite an effort. It weighs about 40 pounds, and I can't lift it any higher than that without a lot of strain. So now we'll spin it up to 2,500 revs a minute, at which point it becomes a live thing. Then I shall lift it 5 feet in 3 seconds by going round in a big circle. Whilst I'm doing it, I shall talk to you so that you shall tell from my voice that I'm not under any stress of any kind. Now in a minute I shall let go with my left hand, and holding this remote end of the shaft only, I shall lift the wheel through 5 feet, all on its own with no effort on my part. All I do is apparently just to steer it along a path that it's already decided it would like to go. Then there's the question of how you stop the wheel. At that speed, that wheel has enough energy to throw itself 200 feet in the air. Did you notice that as it went round in a circle, there was no centrifugal force trying to pull my arm out sideways? Let's just do it once more. To save time, we've already spun it up. So here goes 40 pounds of wheel as light as a feather. This is not a conjuring trick. This is a fact of science. Watch it again carefully. A fact about a spinning wheel that so far everyone has missed.
This little video I enjoy because this raises the question about gyroscopes. The gyroscope spins the atoms in the periphery at many times the force of gravity. In fact, they measure I remember those centrifuges where they used to put the astronauts for training in higher gravity. All of the nuclei in the atoms of the astronaut's body will shift towards the periphery, and the same in a gyroscope. Now this guy, while he was Professor of Electrical Engineering at Imperial College in London, Professor Laithwaite was invited to give a Royal Institution lecture. He chose to demonstrate his observations on gyroscopic force, coming to a series of false conclusions on gyroscopic motion. The false conclusions this is taken from the actual report about this. These Royal Institution lectures used to be broadcast after the event. His weren't. And the reason was he came up with false conclusions. That's usually weasel words for he gave or performed an experiment which we can't explain. Now there are mathematical equations which appear to explain it, but it uses mass and acceleration and gravity and so on in those equations. And since they're not understood or defined properly, you've got to ask whether the mathematics really works. And the scientists were so uncomfortable with this demonstration that they prevented it being sent because it was false conclusions. These can actually be seen on the web at gyroscopes.org. But here's an opportunity to analyse gyroscopic motion from a new physical standpoint, and doing so may give clues to defeat gravity using materials science as well as physics. The offset of the atomic nuclei in a spinning gyro may be many times stronger than that induced by Earth's gravity, and of the opposite polarity, because here the outer part of the gyro is more positive. It's the positive end of the gravitational dipole. The experiment suggests the gyro becomes more strongly influenced by cosmic attraction than by the Earth. Watch this. Have we got sound?
I'll balance that, first of all, like a seesaw. So there is a balance point. When I take this out here, of course, then the balance point is upset. It should tip down. We know that given the opportunity, it's going to do this if it can, but now we've balanced it, and we've balanced it about its centre of mass. So that if this gyro transfers its mass centre to the pivot, it should stay balanced. The question is, will it? Let those who say I cannot make a body appear lighter than it is come and pull holes in that one.
Now what I'd suggest here is that using the electric universe model is an opportunity for mathematicians to apply the electric universe model to try and explain that. And also with these experiments which show an apparent loss of weight, they may be better understood using the electric universe approach. So, electrogravity. The path since Faraday to the discovery of the electrical nature of gravity has been lost in the 20th century by a return to mathematical mysticism, assisted by computer-generated virtual reality. The path is regained, as Peter Modell, who I think may be here, in the audience, he writes in his book, Making Sense, by describing carefully our experience of processes that deliver meaning, we can arrive at an understanding of what is involved. The intuition of the experimentalist Faraday should have carried more weight than later mathematical speculation, because he had the experience of electromagnetic processes that delivered sufficient meaning for the invention of the electric motor. Electric currents in plasma naturally form repeated rotating patterns of matter from galaxies to stars and rotating weather systems on Earth. Science needs to be simple. Resonant orbital systems of charged particles at different levels of scale within the atom may account for the nuclear force, magnetism and gravity. That is, one force to rule them all.